AITA for kicking my daughter out after she exposed my affair to the family? For most of my daughter's life, I thought of us as a normal family. At least, that's the way I like to picture it. We weren't rich, but we had a house, routines, and a kind of stability that many people would envy. From the outside, we probably looked like the picture-perfect family. Two parents, one child, dinners together, vacations once a year. But appearances can be deceiving, because behind closed doors, cracks had already begun to form. My marriage was strained. My spouse and I argued more often than we laughed. We went through the motions for our daughter's sake, pretending everything was fine while the silence between us grew heavier with each passing year. And that's when I made the worst mistake of my life, that I started seeing someone else. At first, I told myself it was harmless, just a distraction, just a way to escape the suffocating tension at home. But as weeks turned into months, the secret meetings and hushed phone calls became something I couldn't deny. It wasn't harmless. It was an affair that I thought I was careful. I thought no one would ever find out. My daughter was just a teenager. Why would she suspect anything? I kept my phone locked, made excuses that seemed believable enough, and told myself I was protecting her from truths she didn't need to know. But kids are smarter than we give them credit for. She noticed the late nights, the way I'd smile at my phone, the sudden work trips that didn't add up. I underestimated her ability to piece things together. And in doing so, I underestimated the storm I was creating. Because one day, she caught me. Not with undeniable proof, but enough to confirm what she already suspected. And instead of keeping it to herself, she told. Not just to me. Not just to her other parent. But to the entire family. The night it all came crashing down started like any other. Dinner was on the table. Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad. We sat together, the three of us, eating in silence. My spouse was scrolling on their phone between bites, my daughter pushing her food around with her fork, and then, out of nowhere, she said it. Are you going to tell Mom about the person you've been seeing? Or should I? The fork froze in my hand. My spouse looked up instantly, confusion flickering into suspicion. And my daughter, she didn't flinch. Her voice didn't shake. She looked me dead in the eye, and in that moment, I knew. She had me cornered that I tried to laugh it off. What are you talking about? I asked, forcing a smile, pretending like it was some teenage misunderstanding. But she didn't back down. She listed the late nights, the phone calls I'd take outside, the receipts she'd seen on the counter, from places I claimed I'd never been. She even mentioned the time she spotted me in town when I was supposed to be working late. My spouse's face turned pale. Their hands clenched around the table edge. Is this true? They asked, their voice trembling with the kind of anger that's quieter than shouting, but far more dangerous. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because the evidence, circumstantial as it was, painted a picture I couldn't erase. And then my daughter delivered the final blow. I told Grandma, and Aunt Lisa, and Uncle Mark. They all know. The room fell silent. Not the kind of silence that passes, but the kind that smothers, heavy and unrelenting. My spouse pushed back from the table, standing slowly, their chair scraping against the floor. You told everyone? I whispered, staring at her in disbelief. She crossed her arms, her face set like stone. You lied to us. I wasn't going to let you lie to everyone else. It felt like the walls were closing in. Not only had my marriage just shattered in front of my eyes, but now my family, my siblings, my parents, everyone knew. My daughter hadn't just exposed me at home. She had turned me into the villain of the entire family. My spouse stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind them. And I sat there, staring at my daughter, who stared right back. There was no remorse in her eyes, only a strange mix of anger and determination. For the first time, I realized she wasn't a child anymore. She had taken control of the truth I thought I could hide. And in that moment, I felt something I never thought I'd feel toward my own kid. Betrayal. It didn't take long for the calls to start. The first came from my mother. Her voice shook with disbelief as she asked, "Is it true? After all these years, after everything, how could you?" She didn't even let me explain before hanging up. Then came my sister, furious. She said I had humiliated the entire family, that I had made my spouse and daughter look like fools, that she couldn't believe I would betray the people closest to me. My phone buzzed nonstop that night. Each call another wave of judgment, another voice reminding me that my secret wasn't a secret anymore. And every time the phone lit up, I thought of her, My daughter, she had been the one to light the match. She hadn't just told her other parent, she had told everyone. She had turned what could have been a private reckoning into a public trial. And now, I was the defendant in front of a jury that would never forgive me. To AT home. Things weren't any better. My spouse moved into the guest room. They wouldn't look at me, wouldn't speak to me beyond clipped, angry words. The silence in the house was unbearable, heavier than it had ever been before. But my daughter? She walked around like she had done the right thing, like she was the hero of the story. She didn't avoid me, didn't act ashamed. If anything, she held her head higher. That I confronted her one evening, my voice low and sharp. Why did you have to tell everyone? Why couldn't you just come to me? We could have handled this privately. She didn't even hesitate. Because you don't deserve privacy after what you did. Her words hit harder than any of the phone calls. Because it wasn't just anger I saw in her eyes, it was disappointment. She looked at me like I wasn't her parent anymore, but some stranger she couldn't respect. And that's when something dark began to grow inside me. That I should have been ashamed of my actions. I should have taken responsibility for the choices I made. But instead, I started focusing all of my anger, all of my humiliation, on her. She hadn't just exposed the truth. She had destroyed the image I had worked so hard to maintain. She had made me small, weak, vulnerable in front of the entire family. And for that, I couldn't forgive her. The whispers followed me everywhere. Family dinners turned into interrogations. Holidays were filled with cold shoulders and judgmental stares. Even at work, I felt like people knew, like they could see the shame written on my face. And every time I looked at my daughter, I saw the person who had done this to me. The one who had made me the villain in everyone else's story. The house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a battlefield, and every room carried tension like smoke after a fire. Meals together became impossible. My spouse wouldn't even sit at the same table as me. My daughter, though, she'd sit there defiantly, eating in silence, her eyes fixed anywhere but on me. Sometimes I'd catch her glance in my direction, and it wasn't the look of a child at their parent. It was judgment. Pure, cold judgment. That I started avoiding her. Not because I was afraid of what she might say, but because being around her made me feel exposed, stripped bare. She had taken all of my secrets and torn them open in front of the people I cared about most. And instead of remorse, she carried herself with this righteous certainty, as if betrayal had made her stronger. The small arguments started first. Why didn't you do the dishes? Why are you home so late again? Don't look at me like that. But beneath every word was something bigger. Every exchange felt like a reminder of what she had done. She had crossed a line no child should cross, and she didn't even seem to care. One night, I snapped. She was in the living room, scrolling on her phone, when I walked in. Do you realize what you've done to this family? I asked. My voice was shaking, but not from fear. From anger. She looked up, calm, steady. I told the truth. The truth. I spat back. You didn't just tell the truth. You destroyed this family. You humiliated me. You turned everyone against me. Her face hardened. No, you did that. I just stopped you from hiding it. The words cut deep. And the worst part was, she wasn't wrong. But I couldn't admit that. Not then. Not with all the shame and bitterness boiling inside me. From that night on, I stopped seeing her as my daughter. At least, not the way I used to. She wasn't. The little girl I had once tucked into bed. The one who used to run to me with scraped knees and big smiles. She had become something else. An adversary. A reminder of my failure. And every time she walked into the room, the resentment grew stronger. I began to think of her not as the one who had exposed the truth, but as the one who had betrayed me. And once that thought took root, it poisoned everything. The tension in the house had been building for weeks, maybe months. Every look, every sigh, every slammed door was another crack in walls already splitting apart. And then one night, it all shattered. That I had just come home from work. It was late, later than I promised, and my spouse didn't even bother coming out of the bedroom. I walked into the kitchen, and there she was, my daughter, sitting at the counter with her laptop open. She didn't look up when I entered, didn't greet me, didn't acknowledge me at all. That silence, that dismissive, cutting silence, broke something inside me. Are you seriously not going to say anything? I demanded. My voice echoed louder than I intended. She finally looked up, her face expressionless. What do you want me to say? Welcome home. Hope you had fun with your affair. The words were daggers. Sharp, deliberate, dripping with contempt. I slammed my hand against the counter, the sound jolting through the kitchen. Enough. I am still your parent, and you will not talk to me like that. But she didn't flinch. She didn't even look scared. She just stared at me with this cold defiance that made my chest tighten. Then start acting like a parent, she said softly, but firmly. That was it. That was the moment I lost control. You think you're so righteous, I snapped. You think you've saved everyone by running your mouth. But all you did was ruin this family. You ruined everything. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. No, you did that the moment you cheated. And in that instant, all the shame, all the guilt, all the anger I had been burying came crashing out of me. You know what? I spat. If you hate me so much, if you can't stand to be under the same roof as me, then maybe you shouldn't be here at all. Maybe you should just leave. The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. My heart pounded in my chest, but I didn't take them back. Her face froze. For the first time, she looked less like my child and more like a stranger. Someone who had just been cut open by the very person meant to protect her. She closed her laptop slowly, stood up, and whispered, "Fine." Then she walked past me, up the stairs, and slammed her bedroom door shut. And I stood there, alone in the kitchen, the echo of my own words ringing in my ears. Words I could never take back. Words that had just severed something that might never be repaired. That I told my daughter she didn't belong in her own home. And for the first time, I realized I might have meant it. The next morning, the house was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Normally, there would be the sound of footsteps on the stairs, cabinets opening, cereal being poured. But that day, nothing. I walked past her bedroom door and for the first time since she was little, it was locked. That I could hear movement inside. Drawers opening, bags being zipped shut. My stomach twisted when I realized what she was doing. She was packing. Later that day, I came home from work and saw her suitcase by the door. Not a small overnight bag, a full suitcase, the kind you take when you don't plan on coming back. She was in the living room, folding a hoodie into her backpack. She didn't look up at me when I entered. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. She shrugged. "Grandma said I could stay with her for a while." My chest tightened. My own mother, the same woman who had scolded me on the phone, was now opening her door to the daughter I had just told to leave. "You don't get to just walk out," I snapped, trying to sound in control. "This is still your home." She finally looked up, her eyes blazing with a mix of hurt and anger. "No, you told me to leave. Remember? You said I don't belong here. So I'm going somewhere I do belong." The words stung worse than any insult. And deep down, I knew she was right. That night, when she wheeled her suitcase out the door, my spouse didn't stop her. They just stood by silently, their arms crossed, their face unreadable. It was as if they were silently agreeing. This was my fault. And once she left, the house felt even emptier than before. But the fallout didn't stop there. Within days, the phone calls started again. My sister, furious that I had kicked out my own child. My brother, calling me a coward. My mother, her voice dripping with disappointment. "You've not only betrayed your marriage, you've betrayed your daughter." Everywhere I turned, I was the villain. And the worst part? My daughter was starting to look like the victim. Photos popped up on social media. Her smiling with my mother, baking cookies, sitting on the porch with cousins. She was surrounded by family, supported, loved. And every picture felt like a slap in the face, a reminder that she was fine without me. That maybe she was better off without me. And I was left alone in the house I had destroyed, staring at the empty chair at the dinner table, wondering if I had just lost my daughter for good. In the weeks that followed, the distance between us grew wider. Not just physically, but emotionally. She was gone from the house, but her presence lingered everywhere. Her empty bedroom, her favorite mug in the kitchen cabinet, the silence at the dinner table where her laughter used to be. I told myself I was relieved, that it was easier without her judgmental eyes burning holes in me every night. But late at night, when the house was dark and I was alone, I felt the truth pressing down on me. I had pushed my own daughter away, and she wasn't coming back, at least, not to me. She was thriving with my family. My mother called constantly, updating me with thinly veiled reproach. "She's doing well here. She helps around the house. She's so polite. You should be proud of her." Every word was a knife twisted deeper into my chest. Proud. How could I feel proud when she had humiliated me, when she had torn my life apart? But to everyone else, she wasn't the betrayer. I was the AT family. Gatherings, I was the black sheep, the one who couldn't be trusted. They whispered when I walked into the room. Some didn't even bother whispering. I caught my brother's words once. What kind of parent throws their own kid out? Even my spouse had shifted. They didn't defend me anymore. They didn't argue. They just looked at me with quiet contempt, as if waiting for me to dig myself deeper into the hole I'd made. Meanwhile, my daughter posted pictures online, smiling, laughing, surrounded by cousins, enjoying her freedom. And the comments poured in. "You look so happy. We love you, sweetheart." Family members showered her with love and validation. She wasn't just surviving. She was thriving without me. And that realization burned, because I couldn't escape the thought that she was painting me as the villain to everyone who would listen. That she was twisting the story, leaving out her part, the betrayal, the exposure, the humiliation. To me, she wasn't a victim. She was the one who had started all of this. I began telling myself a different story, that she wasn't brave for exposing me. She was vindictive. That she hadn't told the truth to protect her mother. She'd done it to destroy me. That she wasn't a martyr. She was manipulative, cunning, cruel in her own way. And the more I repeated it, the more I believed it was easier to see her as the enemy than to face the truth staring back at me in the mirror. It was inevitable that we would cross paths again. Families don't stay fractured neatly. They bleed into each other's lives no matter how much you try to avoid it. The occasion was my mother's birthday. A big one, her 70th. The kind of milestone where everyone shows up, no matter what. Grudges or feuds are simmering beneath the surface. My siblings were there with their kids, the cousins I hadn't seen in months, even relatives who usually stayed away. And of course, she was there. My daughter, when I walked into my mother's house, I spotted her almost immediately. She was in the kitchen, helping set up the food, laughing with my sister like she belonged there more than I did. She looked relaxed, confident, happier than I'd seen her in years. It made my chest tighten with something ugly, jealousy, resentment, maybe both. The whispers started the moment I entered. Conversations dipped, eyes shifted. I felt the judgment pressing down on me like a physical weight. I forced a smile, said hello to relatives who barely acknowledged me, and poured myself a drink just to have something to hold. But I couldn't stop looking at her at one point. Our eyes met across the room. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. She just stared, calm and steady, before turning back to her conversation as if I were nothing more than a stranger. That was the spark. Later, when everyone gathered around the table for cake, the tension finally snapped. Someone, I don't even remember who, made a comment about how proud Grandma must be of her granddaughter for stepping up this year. And just like that, every head turned toward her, and then toward me. It was like they were silently comparing us. The daughter who told the truth, who stood by her morals, who had become a symbol of integrity in their eyes, and the parent who had betrayed it all. I felt the heat rise in my face. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Yeah," I said loudly, my voice dripping with bitterness. "She's so proud of the girl who humiliated her own father in front of the entire family." The room went dead silent. Forks clattered against plates. My mother's face darkened, my sister gasped, and my daughter froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. Then she set it down slowly and looked at me. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned. "You humiliated yourself. I just stopped you from hiding it." Gasps rippled around the table. My brother muttered something under his breath. My sister whispered, "Good for her." And suddenly it wasn't just me against her. It was me against the entire room. I slammed my hand on the table, the sound making everyone jump. "You don't get to talk to me like that. I am still your parent." She didn't back down, not an inch. Then act like one. The silence that followed was suffocating. My mother finally spoke, her voice sharp and cold. "Enough. This is not the place." But the damage was done. The birthday gathering wasn't about cake or celebration anymore. It was about me and the daughter who no longer feared me. And as I looked around that room, I realized something chilling. No one was on my side. Not my siblings. Not my mother. Not even my spouse, who sat stiff and silent, their face unreadable. It was me. Just me. Against all of them. And all because of her. After the birthday blow-up, things changed in a way I couldn't ignore. Before, there had always been some part of me that believed I could fix it, that maybe, if enough time passed, if tempers cooled, I could rebuild the bridges I had burned. But that night at the dinner table, when my own family sat in silence while my daughter stood her ground, I realized those bridges weren't just burned. They were gone. Ashes. The days that followed were suffocating. My phone barely rang anymore, except for the occasional text from a sibling reminding me of my failures. My spouse stopped trying altogether. We lived in the same house, but felt like strangers passing in the hallway. And my daughter? She didn't reach out once. Not a word, but she didn't need to. Because I saw her life unfolding online, post by post, picture by picture. Her smile in those photos haunted me. It wasn't fake. It wasn't forced. It was genuine, the kind of happiness I couldn't remember the last time she had at home. She was thriving, at school, with friends, with family members who praised her for her courage. Every like, every comment, every word of encouragement was a reminder. She didn't need me anymore. And the more I thought about it, the more the guilt gnawed at me, because deep down, I knew she was right that I had lied. I had cheated. I had broken the vows of my marriage. And when she called me out, I hadn't taken responsibility. I had turned my shame into anger and hurled it back at her. Instead of being the parent she needed, I became the enemy she had to fight against. And the worst part, I was the one who told her to leave. Those words replayed in my head over and over again. Maybe you shouldn't be here at all. At the time, I said them out of anger, out of pride. But now, lying awake at night in a house that felt colder and emptier than ever, I realized the weight of them, that I hadn't just told her to leave the house. I had told her she didn't belong in her own family. And once those words left my mouth, there was no taking them back. That IT was the point of no return. Because even if she forgave me someday, even if we somehow spoke again, that moment would always hang between us. A reminder that when it mattered most, I chose my pride over my daughter. And maybe, just maybe, that's something she will never forgive. That it's been months since that night, and nothing feels the same. The house is quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It's the kind of quiet that presses down on you, that makes every creak of the floorboards feel like an accusation. My spouse barely speaks to me anymore. When we do exchange words, they're clipped, cold, practical, about bills, schedules, chores. Never about us. Never about family. And my daughter, she's gone. Not physically. I know exactly where she is. She's with my mother, surrounded by people who love her, people who see her as brave, as strong, as someone who stood up for what was right. I scroll past her photos, see her smile, hear from relatives about her accomplishments, and each time it feels like another reminder of everything I lost. But the truth is, I didn't just lose her. I pushed her away. I was the one who lied. I was the one who betrayed my spouse. I was the one who underestimated my daughter, thinking she wouldn't see through me. And when she finally did what I should have done all along, tell the truth, I punished her for it. That I told her she didn't belong. I told her to leave, and she listened. Now I sit here, surrounded by silence, wondering if there's any way back, wondering if the damage I caused is permanent, wondering if someday she'll look at me again without hatred in her eyes, or if I've destroyed that possibility forever. I keep replaying it, trying to justify my actions, trying to convince myself that she crossed a line, that she betrayed me, that she humiliated me on purpose. But deep down, I know better. She didn't betray me. She saved the family from more lies. That I betrayed her by choosing my pride, my mistakes, my secrets over her trust, by turning my shame into anger and throwing it at her, by forgetting what it means to be a parent, to protect, to guide, to love unconditionally. And now, I don't know if I'll ever get her back. So here I am, telling strangers what I can't bring myself to say to her, laying it all out, every ugly detail, every selfish choice, because I don't know what else to do. Was I trying to protect myself? Or was I just being cruel? Did I deserve to lose her? Or is there some way I can make it right? I don't know. So tell me, Reddit, AITA? Thank you for watching this story on True Tales Hub. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story. That we post new tales twice a day, and each one comes with unexpected twists you won't see coming.